r/datingoverthirty. Popular extension says, not sure if I should be embarrassed about this during sex. Screw it, I'm asking the question. So here is the deal. I was in a 20-year relationship and understand sex well. All the things you naturally do in a long-term relationship during sex seem normal in the moment. Now that I'm not in that relationship, I feel weird and slightly self-conscious during sex. Not about things that turn me on, but honestly, and trust me, this is going to sound so weird, I know, I'm self-conscious about how often I orgasm and how loud I am. I genuinely can't help either. I average about 8 to 10 orgasms per session, and I'm definitely not quiet. I genuinely can't help it. It's not like screaming at the top of my lungs, but if other people are in the same house then they definitely hear me. It's embarrassing. Then I feel like I orgasm too much. I like my guy to get off, but while I'm doing my thing to get him there I'm unable to stop myself and it just seems to interrupt things. As I'm writing this, I'm heavily debating if I should even post it. BC, I know it sounds weird. Ladies, do you have these same experiences? Guys, do either of these bother you? Am I overthinking this, or is there something I can do? Update, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody that made me feel like I'm not weird and that it's normal to do this or even feel self-conscious about it. This was the confidence booster that I really needed. BC, I have felt so weird about it for years. For the women who are the opposite of me, I wasn't always like this. My personal experience was after discussing things with my doctor, I replaced my hormonal birth control with a non-hormonal method. It was a game changer for me. Only do this under the guidance of your physician, but they will tell you that hormonal birth control will significantly lower your libido. Just thought I would share that, since so many commented about it. Soxaris Football says, I haven't read a single comment, but the only thing I envy women on is that they can have multiple orgasms. I mean, who cares what the world thinks? You already go through a lot with periods, which doesn't end until you hit menopause. So, enjoy multiple orgasms. Double_turd says, I find your double spaces to be more embarrassing than the orgasms. Johnny_Wallace_Esquire says, any guy who doesn't absolutely love this about you is not a guy you need in your life. DLDPPL says, girl, same. I squirt too to add insult to injury. Never had any complaints, but Jesus Christ, I wish I could tone it down a bit. Just can't help myself though. Rachel_Ox says, I can relate. I've been known to get in my head and feel as if I were bragging. I average 4 to 6 each session, and if I'm soloing it, up to 10 plus, given I have an hour or so to kill. Boo-hoo it, I love and fully embrace this part of me. I get so hot and bothered, sensitive and wrapped in the passion of it. Also not quiet. Sunrutter says, vocal people should be cherished. Perhaps you need to warn a guy that you are very vocal and tell him if that is not his thing then he had best move on. Nothing is worse than trying to stifle the joy that you are experiencing. And trust me, sir man, I appreciate knowing my partner is enjoying sex. Don't be afraid to tell him you are coming and encourage him to keep making it happen. He will feel like a real master coxman. Life_is_use says, it's not weird, nothing you said would bother me. I would do anything to find a woman like you. Literally. Catpipe says, yeah, whatever bloke you get busy with will love it. He will absolutely take credit for it and think he is king shit for days. Overlord Throwaway 2 says, I keep squirt blankets around for a reason depending on the person. I live in an apartment where I also happen to work, same complex, so a few people get gags, they normally have their own, or in longer term things I get them custom stuff, or learn to bite a blanket or pillow pretty quick. Still loud, and I don't mind in the slightest. and since I tend to pleasure/primal dom, we set some pretty high goals for numbers. There's only one person that I used to see earlier this year that I had any issues with for her reactions, but hers were rather extreme. r/datingoverthirty. Malemonin says, has anyone here sustained a relationship despite disagreeing on kids? This is probably fantasy, but I have to ask anyway. 7 years ago, I met someone who changed my life. We fell in deeply love, we were together for a couple of years, and when it became clear that she wanted kids and I did not, both of us were on the fence about this. When we first met, we decided to take some time apart and revert to being friends instead. We were partially successful in this, but the love and desire are still very much there for both of us, and at times, when both single, we have briefly become intimate again. We have tried dating other people, we've each had some relationships since the friends reversion, but ultimately, neither of us have found other people whom we want to spend our lives with. But disagreeing about kids is huge. Neither one of us would want to ask the other to compromise on this. Given our respective ages, in 35, she's 37, the clock is ticking and the urgency growing, to the point where my friend is ready to have a child alone, if need be. Though she would prefer to have one with a partner. I've reconsidered my stance on having kids rigorously, desperately trying to imagine an arrangement in which I would feel different and embrace the idea of being a parent. But I just can't get there. I'm not mentally prepared for it, and with the exception of the heartache involved with this dilemma, I'm very happy with my life, and not looking to upend it. The conclusion that I'm slowly reaching, with a sense of anguish, is that I don't know if my friend and I can remain this present in each other's lives, if this long internal conflict of love and desire versus incompatibility remains. We've had to take time apart before, we've talked about this, and the thought of having to say goodbye to each other brings tears to our eyes. I'm getting misty-eyed just writing this. It may well be that we have no choice. But in moments like this, you have to explore all of the possible contingencies, and my question, to which I think I know the answer, is this: has anyone on this subreddit successfully preserved a long-term relationship with someone who wanted kids without causing hurt and resentment? I'm open to almost anything. Alternative family structures, polyamory, you name it. Again, my guess is that this is probably wishful thinking, and that we need to part ways. But given what's at stake here, I have to ask, even if the answer is a resounding no, what are you thinking? Update: thank you all for compassionately bursting my bubble of delusion here. It's very clear what needs to happen, and I think we're both scared to make the first move. But I've already been thinking enough about doing it, and as we know, the clock is very much ticking. Logging off, but leaving this up for anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation/dilemma. Navara 590 says, 37F. I met my ex when I was 23, and he was quite a bit older. He claimed to not want kids, and I have never wanted them, so that was all good. Then a couple years in he changed his mind, and the pressure started. From him, from his family, from his friends. I walked in the end, not worth it. The resentment is real. I don't recommend this path, just because the chemistry is there. Anonymous_opinion says, my close male friend went to marriage counseling with his HS sweetie, whom he married after a sustained decade-long relationship over her desire to have kids. They got divorced in time for her to pursue being a mom and him to remarry a child-free woman. The person who doesn't want kids is ultimately the one who is going to make huge concessions. The person who wants kids will absolutely go to great lengths to convince the other person to have children, which him-ho is miserable, because if you go in not wanting children, that's going to bleed over into someone's life, the child's, in major ways. Udain says, the trip to me is that what we don't talk about is everything that factors into this topic. Agreement is just one part. What happens when you both agree you don't want kids, but a pregnancy happens? Would you leave her, them? Because life doesn't always wait for you to be mentally prepared. What about if you both agree, and one or both of you is infertile? What about if you both agree, but you end up having a string of miscarriages? No one ever prepares you for dealing with miscarriage or what it does to a relationship. You don't have to do much, if all you want is her. But if she wants more, then it's sort of on her to decide if she wants to stay. Just tell her the truth, and be ready for what comes next. Throwaway_dating2289 says. No, it's a deal breaker. Forsaken Pepper 3099 says. Walk away, it will be painful, but she will very likely regret not having children, and alternative arrangements essentially never work long term. I have been there in the sense of not being ready at a younger age, when a woman I was with really wanted to get married and have kids, but I had to let her go as hard as it was for both of us to cut ties. I'm ready at this point, but it took me about 7 years of growth and development. If she is 37, she probably doesn't have that kind of time. Probably not what you want to hear, but in my opinion walking away is the hardest, but most right thing to do. Edit. Staying in contact also makes it harder for the both of you to move on, and doesn't allow space mentally or emotionally for someone else. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.